Hi, so as part of an effort to show a little bit more work in progress, I wanted to do a little screen cap of the authoring tool for a project called The Knotted Line. The Knotted Line is directed by Evan Bissell, who's a painter in the Bay Area. You can find out more at theknottedline.us. But basically the piece is an interactive timeline, basically a huge painting that describes the history of labor, education, and incarceration in the U.S. So the painting is interactive in that there are regions that can be shown or hidden based on mouse interaction. Basically, these kind of shapes in this knotted figure that masks the painting that you're able to play with and kind of show and hide pieces of it as you go along. So this is the tool that I'm using. This is a flex space tool to allow me to build the curve that crops the painting as we go. So right now you're seeing an empty part of the curve that hasn't been built yet. There's some silhouettes in the background here that actually match up to figures that appear in the painting. Right now we're at a point in the timeline that's about time of the Emancipation Proclamation, and the piece that I'll be building is an image of sharecroppers working in a field here. So we're going to be building this piece, which will reveal this sharecropper working in the field. So I'm going to start by clicking one of these nodes here. I'm going to click Add Node. That's going to result in a new node being added here that I can drag around. I'm going to change its type to fixed. So there are fixed nodes which are kind of exempt from the rules of the physics simulation, and there are dynamic nodes which obey the rules of the physics simulation. So here's a fixed node. When I drag it, it stays where I put it. That's what making it fixed does. You notice as I drag it around, we can actually see the painting being revealed and how it interacts with the silhouette, which is really fun and playful as you're interacting with the painting. So I'm going to position these fixed curves. These are going to be, these fixed points, these are going to be the end points of the curve. So I'm going to position them so they match up exactly with the next segment of the painting. I'm going to go back to these original points, and I'm going to add the intermediate nodes that will define the shape of this curve as we create it. So I'm going to create 3 new nodes here. And then I'm going to adjust the kind of characteristics of these nodes so that they just naturally, by the way they interact with the physics simulation, form into the shape that I want, form into specifically this shape defined by these white lines here, this curve. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start with the bottom part of the curve first, and I'm going to increase the mass of these nodes. You notice that the nodes themselves get larger as I increase their mass. It's just a visual way of cueing how much mass has been applied to each one of them. And now that I've increased their mass, I can also apply these wind forces, which allow me to kind of, in a more fine-grained way, shape how the curve is hanging. So I'm going to increase this kind of vertical wind, which really lets me get the curve positioned where I want it. So this is about the bottom of where that curve should be. But because this is a physics-based system, all these nodes affect the positions of the other nodes. So I can't just set this node where I want it and then adjust the other ones, because if I do that, since they're all interdependent, it's going to make the one I placed first hang even lower than I want it to be. So you have to be kind of preemptive in how you adjust these guys, and adjust one of them kind of with the forethought of how it's going to affect the others. And it just becomes this iterative process of messing with these guys until they get to be about the shape that you want. Okay, so here we're getting pretty close to what the bottom of that curve should look like. Again, we check our reference here. So I'm pretty happy with that. I might add a little bit of horizontal wind just to kind of push the curve a little bit this way. All right, so now let's work on the top. So again, we're going to start by increasing the mass of these nodes. And I found working with this tool that I need to increase the mass of all the nodes in similar fashion first before I start adjusting, because otherwise there's just too many variables as I'm trying to get this curve to be the right shape. So now I'm going to increase the vertical wind that's blowing on these nodes. Do it for all of these. So that's getting pretty close, but if we look at the reference curve, it's kind of drifting a little bit to the right here. So I'm going to apply some horizontal wind in order to get the whole thing to drift right a little bit. And a little bit more vertical, and maybe a little more mass, because I find that adding mass lets me get kind of tighter turns in the curve. Scooch that up a little bit, move this guy back down. Now we're getting pretty close. Might add a little horizontal wind on this one, and a little more vertical here. Alright, so we basically got it here. If we look back at our reference, we'll see that we've matched it pretty closely. And that's how we build a section of this curve. So this is just one piece of this entire huge timeline. You can see here's a little schema of the timeline so far. This is just 2 sections, so we have quite a bit more to do. But anyway, I wanted to give you a sense of what it's like to use these tools and build this curve, and hope it was interesting for you.